Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming this afternoon to our talk on VR and older adults. This webinar is hosted by the USC Smart VR Center, which is funded by the USC Office of Research. To learn more about our center and events, you can see our website at smartvr.usc.edu or follow us on Twitter at USC_SmartVR. Joining us today will be Davis Park, the Vice President of the Front Porch Center for Innovation and Wellbeing, Kyle Rand, the CEO and co-founder of Rendever, and our host, James Finley, a co-director of the Smart VR Center and PI of the USC Locomotor Lab. And with that, we can begin with Davis Park.
I want to first start off by just saying thank you for letting me be a part of this conversation. We've been very, very interested in virtual reality for about 7 or 8 years now, and just kind of give you a little bit of a background of what Front Porch is and who we are. Front Porch is a senior living provider. We manage and operate over 50 communities throughout California, both as full service retirement communities as well as affordable housing. And so all told, we touch about 7,000 lives daily. And we operate and manage communities up and down the state of California, as south as Chula Vista near the Mexico border, and as far north as Santa Rosa, California. We also have a couple communities outside of the state, but the work that I do within Front Porch is in running the Front Porch Center for Innovation and Wellbeing. And our mission is to explore innovative uses of technology to empower individuals to live well, to thrive, especially in their later years. And the center is really set up to pilot test, to research, and to deploy technologies that not only support the residents of our communities, but really older adults everywhere. We've got partnerships with a number of different startup companies, Fortune 500s, as well as senior service centers and regional senior serving organizations. But our bread and butter really is in looking to see how we can deploy technologies within congregate living communities. And when we test technologies, we look at everything from robotic pets to exogaming. We're very, very big on voice as an opportunity to further engage with older adults, voice solutions such as Google Home Assistant or Alexa. We also have done quite a bit of work around telehealth and telemedicine, and look for strategies on how we can promote the adoption and the engagement of these technologies to help older adults live fulfilling lives. And to kind of give you some background as to why the work we do, why we feel that the work we do is important, and what's sort of driving our initiatives are really kind of primarily two things. One is in social connectedness and engagement. And what you're seeing here is really an overall, some of the overall consequences of older adults living with loneliness or social isolation. I mean, everything from there are related conditions when it comes to loneliness that includes the increased risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, death, and this has tremendous societal impact as well. A lot of this data was collected by IBM, and but pointing to some more current research, the University of Michigan conducted a study that looked at how there was a difference between the impact of COVID with pre-existing conditions on the ground in terms of social isolation and loneliness, in terms of companionship and isolation and social contact. And all of the statistics dropped for a problem that was already pretty endemic within the older adult population. The other thing that's really kind of driving our work and around technology is, as our aging population increases, we really need to look for solutions that are technology-based to serve more people, but continue to provide that high touch, that engagement aspect that's really important to the work that we all do. So when we looked at virtual reality, when it first kind of came out through Oculus Rift and its Kickstarter, like we immediately saw the tremendous opportunity. And a lot of folks back then were thinking, oh, this is a great platform for first-person shooter games and more for a younger audience. But we immediately saw the opportunity for engagement, for older adults to really be able to experience things that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And throughout our journey, one of the things that we really lamented was the need for content. So the technology was there, the ability to kind of experience different worlds and different instances, situations were present, but what experiences and content were there to meaningfully connect the user with their platform was just not there. And so one of the things that we had done was we did a small pilot test. We worked with a family of one of the residents living in one of our communities, and this gentleman had MCI, mild cognitive impairment. And we asked this family member, hey, can you take a video of a vacation or a family outing? He said, we're going to go to Hawaii, but my father can't come. I said, we'll give you a 360 camera, take it with you, do what you want with it, and then let's bring it back and have him experience it. So we put this camera, we put the footage onto a VR headset. And when we first introduced this to this gentleman, he was not into it. He was not wanting to come down. He didn't want to go out to lunch. But at the coaxing of his daughter, he came anyway. And this is his first experience. So the camera was put in front of the window table, and everyone was speaking with him. They were all taking turns. And he was engaging, right? He was engaging with the content, and it just completely just lit up his eyes. And what was otherwise kind of a sort of a miserable day for him, really kind of ended with this great experience that he had. And by the end of this session, he was ready for lunch. He's like, okay, let's go eat. And so that's a sort of personalized engagement that we found so powerful. And as we continued our research, we set out a call. We knocked on doors. We looked to see who else was out there doing this kind of work that was really interested and excited about bringing experiences to older adults. And we came across Max Orozco. I think that he's here on this call. He came to us through USC, and he started up this company called Doomium, and he built a platform, a curated platform of content, which we were so excited about. We were thrilled because this is exactly what we needed. We need to connect our users, our older adult population, with content that resonated, that mattered. And so we're not talking about necessarily video games, but we want to provide folks with experiences that they crave, that they're hungry for, like tours, or being able to go on a virtual European travel vacation, or just simply experience a nature walk. And so we tested this out with residents in one of our communities and found really high engagement. And one of the great things about Doomium was that it users will be able to choose what is your adventure going to be like today. And then the reception was very, very positive. I mean, people were just they were just thankful and happy to be able to have the opportunity to try something different and something new. And we also work with a number of folks at USC and at the Chan School to test out virtual reality in various clinical applications. And one of them was in exploring the possibility of feedback, of biofeedback for people who had experienced or were living with stroke. And in one of our scenes, in one of our demos, we introduced a resident to
Oh, I see the
experience.
birds.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh, this is lovely. Oh, boy. Oh, look at that.
The castle, yeah.
Yeah.
Up here.
Oh, boy. That's really great. This is really beautiful.
Yeah, so like we hear these kinds of things often, like when, you know, like if they're where they are, and being present in that experience really just immediately changes their mood and their sensibilities, and who they're connecting with as well, and what they're connecting with. We also did a number of visits to our skilled nursing facilities, and one of our interns had taken one of our VR headsets and just started walking around the halls and looking for folks who would be interested in trying this out. And one of our interns outings actually came across a gentleman who was recovering from knee surgery, and he was clearly in discomfort, wasn't happy to be there, and wasn't in the greatest moods. And so he kind of reluctantly, like, he decided to kind of participate. And so he put on a headset, and we asked him, like, you know, is there some place that you'd like to be? And he was from Mexico, and he said, you know, I'd like to go to this place in Mexico City, and I've only heard of it. And so we put that into the experience, and he like began to look around, and he was commenting on things, and was so excited to be there because he'd only heard of this place but never had been there. And like after the experience, he like was a lot more lively, and he did not mention anything about the pain that he experienced. So, and there are obviously a lot of studies with VR that have to do with pain management and the application for reducing those kinds of discomfort in redirecting folks. Kyle Rand, he is from Rendever, but I can't talk about like our work with VR without at least touching upon some of the work that we've done directly with Rendever. Rendever is a group-based VR experience. Up to 4 individuals can put on headsets, and I'm sure Kyle is going to talk about this as well. But let me kind of like just go over some of the things that we found tremendously compelling about this, because for us, it's not just about putting on a headset and like walking away. It's about social connectedness. It's about engagement. It's about like getting to know someone a little bit more than you would have otherwise. And in this one video here,
there is the beer I was talking about.
this gentleman here was
That's
like, he was just kind of like sitting there and wasn't very seemed to be like somewhat like paying attention. And then the facilitator asked, well, where do you want to go? And Gary had said, well, like, I don't know if you could find this little beach in the Netherlands. When I was a kid, I don't think you'll find it. It popped up on Google
10
Maps,
minutes
and
walk.
this is what he's talking about. He said, oh, look, the pier is over there. And everyone else turned to look at it, and he was able to share a little bit of
That's
himself
why I'm in
during this
Carlsbad.
experience. And another experience was like some people walking through a virtual neighborhood, again using Google Maps, and they're kind of pointing at a house that one of them had grown up in. And what this does, and what we found so powerful about this particular type of platform, is the ability to share, for the ability for people to connect with one another, for people to connect with the experiences that they're seeing, and they're all able to collectively view and to talk about. And this is what we really mean by engagement. And when we did this study, we found that over 60% of them felt that the virtual reality allowed them to feel like they're participating in a meaningful experience, that they might not otherwise be able to do in reality. It's the next best thing to being there. It's truly more of a social thing. It's a mood elevating experience. I think it's a great way to see places I've never been and will never go to. And this hits on all the reasons why we believe that VR has the opportunity to help support the meaningful and purposeful connections that older adults need to live well. And lastly, I kind of want to touch upon another project that we've done in VR with a company called Embodied Labs. And Biolabs, some of you may have heard of, but it's a virtual reality empathy training platform that exposes caregivers, family members, and other loved ones to experience in the eyes, in the embodiment of someone who is living with certain conditions, to understand what that person is going through. So that condition may be anything from macular degeneration to loss of hearing to end of life conversations, transition care, people living with Alzheimer's. And it like essentially puts the viewer in the eyes of that person through like these beautifully produced films, interactive films, and helps you as a user like get a little bit of a glimpse of what's like to live with these conditions. And at the end of this experience, it then prompts conversations to share and to reflect on, have any of you have had any relatives or friends or loved ones who've experienced this? And they would say, and they would open up conversations. And, one of the cool things about like one of the trainings is around macular degeneration. And with macular degeneration, people living with that like have this big dark splotch in front of them. And when they're served food or when someone is talking to them, they think that they're not interested or they're not hungry. And but all it takes is for a caregiver to, for example, present food to the side of that individual, because that individual can only see in the peripheral vision. And so these are the sort of things that live with that take. These are sort of experiences that an individual will then take with him or her to then better provide care to an older adult. We found huge engagement and positive reception when it came to using Embodied Labs among our care teams, which included dining folks, like people in maintenance, life enrichment, social workers, and they all found this type of training to really have an impact on their views on how they can support the older adults that they're serving. So the key lessons that we would like you to walk away with, in talking about VR, is in the importance of how a platform and how technology like this, used as a tool, can provide personalized experiences to support and open up engagement. And when I mean engagement, I talk about this in like in the broadest of terms, social engagement and engagement with content, engagement with experiences. The sharing these personal experiences lead to social connection. And this is again like going back to the importance of addressing social isolation and loneliness, because it's related to a whole host of other factors that have negative consequences. And finally, this is simply a tool. VR is not going to be for everyone. Not everyone is going to be excited about it. Not everyone's going to take to it immediately, but it does have the opportunity to provide meaningful experiences in aging for older adults and their caregivers.
Great. Thank you so much, Davis. Next, we have Kyle Rand presenting on Rendever.
Thank you. Let me make sure this gets presented, no problem. Everybody can see this? Cool. I want to start to also say thank you to Kira and team for bringing us on board. And it's an absolute pleasure to be speaking right after and alongside Davis, who's a good friend in the industry. And we are absolutely blessed and always excited to consider Front Porch one of our partners. So great. I think you did an amazing job of queuing it up. Funnily enough, I was with Davis at an industry event, not maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, time is flying. But he was introducing Rendever to somebody else. And then he pretty much gave the whole sales pitch for us and looked at me and was like, did I say it right? And I was like, yeah, man, you're hired, like full time, come join the team. So Davis is a great person and just, again, great to be speaking alongside him. I speak very quickly and I'm going to apologize, but we have a lot of content that I want to share. So I'm just going to go. Really quick introduction about me. I have been very much in this industry for as long as I can remember. I grew up volunteering in senior living. I went to school and I studied cognitive decline in the aging population. And then I had a personal experience with my own grandmother, moving her into a senior living community based on care needs. And then she fell into what Davis did a good job of outlining of the social isolation trap. And it hit her, unfortunately, it hit her really hard. And I was still in school as this was happening, but I got to see kind of firsthand just how detrimental social isolation was for her, and how that detriment, especially in a care setting like a senior living community, how that led to a lot of friction within my own family. My parents, my aunt, my uncle, it was tough for everybody, and experiencing it, one level removed was pretty tough. And so I eventually co-founded Rendever. And at Rendezvous, we are really focused on reducing social isolation through the power of VR and through the power of shared experience. And we've been dedicated to the use of VR for the aging population since day one. We were founded back in 2016, and we've been growing and moving ever since. And we're currently in a period of pretty fantastic growth and acceleration of new products. And I'll hopefully talk about a lot, as much as I can in 15 minutes. I just want to comment, for this industry, since we're talking smart VR, I want to give a little bit of a layout of the age tech industry in general, because people might not be familiar with this concept of age tech yet. But I think everybody will come to see, age tech it's growing, it's booming, it's going to be one of the next big hot things. There's a little bit of, let's see, a map here. So if we look at age tech, I would say back about 10 years ago in 2012, there was this first big group called Aging 2.0 that was founded. And you may or may not be familiar, but if you look at the aging demographic right now, it is growing. It is growing remarkably. I think some of the key stats, one of the biggest ones is every single day, 10,000 people are turning the age of retirement, which is, you can't really ignore that. So it's our fastest growing demographic, it's our largest growing demographic, and they control a pretty astronomical percent of the actual spending industry. So Joe Coughlin, who's the director of the MIT Age Lab, has coined the phrase longevity economy. And it's something that everybody really needs to be kind of tuned in on, because the overall financial power of the 50 plus, 65 plus demographic it's huge. And so where we are today, 10 years after Aging 2.0 was first founded, we're in a place where I think we're starting to really see a lot of acceleration, a lot of growth within this industry. I'd say that AARP has played a really huge role in doing this, and they've done so through congregation. So as recently as this week on Monday, AARP actually launched something called the Age Tech Collaborative, which is a community that we are super proud to be a founding member of, that is connecting all age tech startups, investors who are interested in this space. Hopefully we'll get some senior living operators in there, and test beds where people can come in, and people who look at the opportunity to really improve and enhance the aging experience and create a more cohesive understanding approach and opportunity for everybody to really learn from each other, which I'm just phenomenally excited about. Obviously for us, the biggest thing that we're looking to do is we're looking at this really core issue that seems to be presented by aging, which is social isolation. I'm not going to dive in too much. I think Davis already kind of overviewed it. I also think that everybody at this point coming out of the pandemic has experienced social isolation firsthand to some extent. And so we don't really have to explain what social isolation is, but we really get to tailor what it does to this demographic. And Davis gave some pretty specific numbers. I think one of the biggest stats that we really focus on is there's been actually multiple meta-analyses that have been done that have found that social isolation correlates to as high as a 30% increase in mortality rates. I think the one that Davis shared was 26%, and there's a number of them, but that's wild, and people used to think of social isolation as something that was just like an unfortunate, sad component of the aging process. But the reality is it leads to all these comorbidities with increased risk of dementia, heart attack, stroke. We're talking about diabetes, depression, anxiety, risk of suicide, decreased immunofunction. There's a lot that happens because people become isolated. And so what we see as the biggest opportunity for VR is to actually help overcome social isolation through the power of shared experiences. And that's the mission that we're on at Rendever, where we see VR as the ideal tool set to create a sense of shared positive experience that allows people to connect, that allows people to kind of remove the physical boundaries, physical distances that have been come to be associated with the aging process, because this technology is so amazing. Now, you might be wondering, like, is that actually possible? And Davis definitely shared some great quotes. I'd say we have a ton of really exciting anecdotal evidence. Like, I could spend 30 minutes just sharing photos and videos of how people have responded to shared VR. But I think a lot of the videos that were shown previously really showed what you could do to an individual. And what we wanted to see is what happens if you take that individualized experience and you make it something that's accessible, that is easily manageable, that is reproducible, and that takes the social dynamics and puts that at the center. And so we built a social experience platform that utilizes VR. And when it comes down to our core mission of reducing social isolation, you might wonder, can VR really do that? And one of the first things that we did, because when we were starting back in 2015, 2016, there were a lot of people who hadn't really experienced VR for themselves yet. And so when we made the jump to saying that this is the perfect technology for a demographic that is stereotypically considered to be tech-averse, people definitely kind of gave us some funny looks. And so we realized from day one that we had to do some research. So we partnered up with MIT Age Lab, Joe Coughlin's lab, and Benchmark Senior Living, which is one of the biggest providers up here in New England. And what we found was that after just 2 weeks of daily shared VR experiences, residents had statistically significant decreases in depression scores and increases in multiple measures of social health. Most interestingly, they actually started to trust each other more. And when you think about what we're here to do, right, we're using this technology to empower human connection. And a really significant component of any human relationship is trust. So the fact that we could actually influence trust through enabling shared experiences is something that continues to be something that's really exciting that we're continuing to study. And again, that was after just 2 weeks. So we took that, and what we've spent the past 5 years doing is we built a platform that has taken this kind of core guiding belief that the foundation of human connection is shared positive experiences, and then infused a really deep understanding of VR. And this group understands it, but if we boil it down, right, you take this technology, you put this headset on, you can go anywhere in the world, you can do anything, and you can do it with anyone. And by combining those two elements, this technology is actually the perfect opportunity to empower people to experience more meaningful things and to do so together, regardless of their physical mobility limitation. So that's what we've done. We spent the past 5 years taking a really UX-heavy approach to product development, and we've built a platform that's full of features that are really designed around authentic interaction and authentic community building. Again, for us, it all comes back to empowering social connections to be formed. And for us, that means we need to empower the communities to build really thriving communities and to take some of these experiences and make them massively available. And so if you look at our platform today, there's all sorts of things that you can do, but it all boils down to the experiences that we're crafting, that we're delivering, and the approach that we take, which is we put staff at senior living communities like Front Porch in the position where they're empowered to lead those videos, those moments that Davis shared. They're able to do that, and they're able to do that on a daily basis. And that is the approach that we've taken, and that's where I think a lot of our success has come from. From a VR component, we have things that range from structured location by location activity guides, which are essentially like a walking tour through Paris. We have a feature, of course, where we can take people back to their childhood home, type in any address, we can bring them there. A lot of different kind of cool interactive features on how you can explore the world and make it a little bit more gamified. We obviously have a huge 360 video library. And then we have a suite of interactive applications that are designed specifically for the aging population to enable them to kind of engage in a more fuller way. And it's working. So to date, we're over 400 enterprise partners across the US, Canada, Australia, with more countries being onboarded. And as of September, we actually hit this moment of having 1 million full, we like to say, magical moments delivered in VR through Rendever. And what's really exciting is we think about the company, and we think about the state of VR and the way that it's positioned within this industry. Over 1/2 of those moments happened within the past year. So between September 2020 and September 2021, there were over 500,000 moments that were delivered through Rendever. And that's just phenomenally exciting. That's over 12,000 sessions across all these community partners. And it speaks to, when the world is put into a position where, you really need technology to enable human connection, VR is the perfect tool to enable human connection and to do so across physical distances. So this is, to me, really, really exciting. And this number is just accelerating really quickly. A really big, important thing, and that we've been working on since day one, and that we're recently accelerating, is this understanding that when you think about someone who is in the aging demographic, their community doesn't start when they move into a senior living community, but rather, when you're 80 years old, if you have a family, you've spent decades building a family-style community. And those relationships, it's really important that they are able to be maintained. That's ultimately where a lot of the stress came from my own family when my grandmother was moved. And we see in a lot of communities is when you do that, when you onboard someone into a community, there's a huge opportunity for the existing relationship to become a little bit frayed and a little bit distant. And part of that comes down to, it's a different care setting for sure. Part of it comes down to the fact that it's just like you're creating physical distance, where in a lot of cases there might not have been physical distance. And then the opportunity to engage and interact, like you need technology there. You're either showing up in person or you need technology. And again, magic of VR is you can go anywhere, you can do anything, but you can do it with anyone, regardless of where they are. That's because the VR, in essence, removes any physical distance. So we've been working on a family platform ever since our very first year. And most recently, we were actually awarded a phase 2 clinical trial grant by the NIH, the National Institutes on Aging, to study can we actually empower and enable the family relationship to stay strong even when this physical distance is created. And Front Porch, one of the Front Porch communities, is one of 12 communities that we're doing this clinical trial within. And we're looking at comparing VR-based family engagement over a 5-week period to, Zoom or video conferencing applications. And we did phase 1 back in 2019 up until the pandemic hit. And the results were like phenomenally strong. Like it was something that everything that we wanted to prove was happening. And what the family portal that we've designed allows people to do is it allows people to craft and create personalized experiences. And I think that's one of the big points that Davis mentioned towards the end is we talk about meaningful aging and meaningful experiences. Like part of that, like, yes, there are broad scale opportunities. Like who wouldn't want to go on a walking tour through Paris when it's like freezing cold outside? Boston based, not California based. But the opportunity to create something that's a little bit more personalized, a little bit more unique through giving a family member a 360 camera and allowing them to record their family wedding or record a family birthday party or even a Thanksgiving dinner, and then bring that into the platform and allow the person who can't physically be there to virtually be there. There's so much power in that. So that's what we're able to do with our family platform. And again, we're working on a phase 2 clinical trial. We just finished the first round of data collection, and we'll be coming to Davis's community and a few other communities in 2022 to really study this on a deeper level. And then just talking about kind of the future and some of the things that we've been developing. Again, we've been doing this for 5 years. We're seeing phenomenal success with a lot of our communities, hundreds of them across the world, but we're a tech company, so we're always looking at the future. And what the pandemic created was a need for really intentional new features that it put us as a company in a position to be really creative. And one of the things that I'm most proud of that we launched as a component of this comprehensive response to COVID pandemic was Rendever Live, which, if you look at, from a technology perspective, every single one of our communities that we work with has like a network of devices, right? They're doing networked VR sessions, which is what allows and enables these group experiences. And what we're able to do, since we control all these networks, is we're able to take them all and then combine them up into one massive network, where we're able to actually deploy and deliver live programming to every single community and every single device that's loaded with Rendever. So with that, we launched Rendever Live, and at this point, every single day, we do a live programming session where, I think today was a history of Princess Diana, and created like immersive experiences around her life story, and then combined like educational components, combined some trivia components that get communities to really like engage with each other. And there's a large kind of feature set that we've built over the past year plus of delivering these sessions. And what I'm most like, and this is just growing, like it's growing every single month. We're introducing new things. Very recently, we started doing trivia. And again, this goes back to like, what is the power of VR? Like, can we actually create human connections through physical distances using this kind of platform approach? And one of my favorite anecdotal stories that's happened recently is we have every single week, this happened just yesterday, every single week, we have a community up in Toronto in Canada, a Riviera community, and a community out in California, one of the Oakmont communities, show up every single Wednesday for our trivia to go head to head. And yesterday, and if you've worked in a senior living community, you know that it's hard to get like really large groups, right? Yesterday, we had 18 people in Toronto and 19 people in this community in California showing up to compete. And for us, this is really exciting because this like talks to the future of what we're able to do. And when we think about technology and technology's role in enabling better, stronger communities, it's huge. Like that's like going beyond the walls of a building to build really authentic community dynamics. And I'm phenomenally proud of the company. I'm phenomenally proud of the team that's really like creating these experiences. I actually was just honored by the Times 100 list of best inventions just this past week. So Rendever Live is cool. It's exciting. It allows us to stay connected with our communities, including Front Porch. And then most recently, back in September, we announced and unveiled that we're actually launching a fitness platform. I'll show one quick video that just gives a little bit of a primer of what the fitness platform looks like. But it is taking physical exercise and it's taking cognitive fitness. You'll see some kind of street tasks that play out during the video that I show. And it takes this backbone, which is social engagement, and takes those three elements, puts them together to create a future where fitness, right? We think about fitness as modern day, right? Peloton and Equinox, right? All these opportunities to like build a brand and build a story and build like a personal identity that is fitness because there's these cool things. It doesn't really exist on the senior side. And what VR does is it makes it cool, it makes it fun, and it makes it impactful. And some of the modules that we're creating don't actually feel like exercise, which makes it really easy to motivate people to engage. So I'll show a quick video. Let's see, 30 seconds, just to give a primer of what it might look like. all 3 modules, we're launching with those 3 modules. They're all we all have kind of a clinical approach to understanding. We have a study that's going to launch on our cycle module. There's a growing body of evidence that points to paddle-based sports like ping pong as being one of the most beneficial things you can do for people with dementia and other forms of cognitive decline. And paint, if you look at neuroscience research, what you do when you create is you get a lot of like full brain activation. So there's a huge opportunity here. Again, we just announced 2 months ago, and we just have our first set of systems that's set to launch next month. So in general, I guess to wrap and move to questions, we've been doing this for years, and what we're doing is we're really empowering all of these communities to take this technology and on a daily basis create moments that are meaningful and that are empowering and that really create the definition of what a thriving community can and should look like as we look to the future of aging. And it's an absolute pleasure and honor to work in this industry and with people like Davis. So I think that's all I got, but I appreciate everybody for listening in.
All right, well, thank you, Davis and Kyle, for 2 really wonderful presentations. It's really great to see what you both are doing. And hopefully, I think everyone has learned something about what you offer and has maybe even sparked some ideas for potential collaborations. Let's see, one question is related to that topic in the chat. So I'd just like to maybe kick things off with one question for both of you. So one thing that we know pretty well about VR is when people first experience VR, it's really exciting, it's brand new, but ultimately, like, we want people to continue using it. And so I was wondering what types of things you all have seen on both in your experiences to maybe help us understand, what types of people tend to persist with these types of VR interventions, or if there are ways that we can maybe enhance replayability to keep people engaged in the long run. And maybe start with either.
Sure, I'll jump in and I'll say that that's something that to this day continues to be a question that we receive. In the beginning, it was something that we as a company struggled with. It was, how do we really make sure that we create, we set really high expectations when you have that first experience, right? You do that first experience, it's really powerful. From a staff perspective, they see that and they're like, okay, well, that's what I'm expecting every single time from here on out. And, there is the element of awe and wonder that comes from your very first immersive experience. That does heighten it. But I think that what we've come to understand is you can continue to deliver that. And what we've done as a company is we've taken the approach that we're delivering new experiences at this point on a weekly basis. Every single Monday, all of our communities, they come in and their staff have an email that lists out everything new that you can do on the Rendever platform. And, we've learned as we've been building that not every single experience is going to be very impactful for every individual. But when it comes down to building authentic social dynamics, if we create an experience that one person leans into and one person has a connection to and one person has a story with, then that's going to motivate them to share that story. It's going to motivate them to, engage in really the excited ways. And through that, by focusing on that, right, those little magical moments, we can really create authentic dialogue. We can create the moment of impact that goes back to, it's not really, for us, it's not about the VR experience. It's about the social dynamic that you're creating. So by focusing on that and building an experience library that focuses on empowering those social dynamics, that's where we see kind of success. And that's where we've been really focused on our approach. And again, we're launching new things every single week to make sure that is consistent.
Yeah, Dr. Finley, I think that's a really, really good and important question. How do you dose something like this, over time and not just rely on that initial sort of encounter? And one of the things, and Kyle sort of alluded to this, is that one of the things that is really critical and important to sustained engagement. And this is true for anything, for any kind of technology, because it's never about the technology. It's about how you set up the adoption and how you create the strategies for success among people, this is about people, right? And if you don't have that person if you don't have that position who is supposed to be facilitating these encounters, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Like we need community-based champions in order to deliver these experiences. And what we've done, like, and this person at a community, like in a senior living, for example, could be anyone who's like excited about it and shows enthusiasm on like what its impact could potentially be. And one of our communities that's adopted the platform is regularly doing this with our memory care neighborhood. You know, people who are living with dementia, mild cognitive impairment, or Alzheimer's, and so he's conducting regular sessions with. I'm not sure how often, but he's a community driver. He's the one who drives the bus, who gets people out to, you know, the shopping, and he just kind of took up on this because he was really excited about it. But my point being is that, you know, what it really comes down to is who is going to manage this, and that's a struggle across anything and everything that we do with regards to technology.
Great answers, thank you both. So I'm just going to pull, let's see, a question from the chat. So I think in general, questions related to potential collaborations, feel free to reach out to people individually. We won't necessarily set those up here in real time. So there's a question from Tiffany. Hi, Tiffany. Thanks for joining us, about whether games are multiplayer. And I think this came about, Kyle, during your last, when you were talking about the fit version of your platform.
Yeah, so everything that we do is focused on social dynamic building. So in order for that to be the case, there needs to be multiple people engaged in the experience. And so, yes, everything that we do, everything that we build is social enabled, multiplayer. And I think one of the more fun ones, I don't know, they're all, to me, they're all fun, but one of the more fun ones that I've seen recently, I think we're talking about Rendever Fit, the cycle application. So what our cycle module on Rendever Fit is you'll have two people that sit next to each other, and then they both wear their own VR headsets. And then below them, they have a kind of like under desk bike pedal. And that bike pedal is hooked up to their headset. So depending on how fast they bike, that's how fast they're going to move to the virtual environment. And then what we're able to do is we're able to put them next to each other, right? Actually in the virtual environment. So you have two avatars who are competing against each other. So if you look to the right, you look to the left before the race, you know who you're competing against. And we've been doing demos of Rendever Fit, you know, over the past 6-7 months, but especially over the past couple of months, we've been able to bring it on the plane with us pretty much everywhere that we go and do demonstrations. And it is a good time, 10 out of 10. Like, by creating that social dynamic, right? There's a little element of competition in everyone. Yeah, I think one of the reasons that most senior living communities really hold on to bingo is because you get to really spark that competitive element, and people have an opportunity to win against others, and creating that in a super fast paced, like, okay, within 10 minutes, you'll get a bike race done, and then you can do it again. We've seen people be like, okay, let's go again, because they want to get back into that competitive element. So I think being able to see that and build that is huge. But yes, every single thing that we do leverages multiplayer and really like focuses on multiplayer, whether or not that's multiple older adults, or in some cases, memory care, hospice, et cetera. It can really be focused on the caregiver, the community staff, and the single individual receiving the VR. If that's going to be what's most beneficial for them, then that caregiver is really put in the lens of like, you are the social connection through the experience. And there's huge opportunity. Like I have tons of stories we could share there.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to add the reason that I asked is obviously your mission is social connected driven. And I once saw a study that said older adults were having a great time in these experiences, but because they were alone, they felt more isolated and more socially isolated than they had because their partners were sitting right next to them and they couldn't bring them in to this experience with them. And I thought that was such interesting qualitative feedback that I would have never thought about. But the multiplayer solution to that is brilliant. That's great.
Yeah, I think that it's huge, right? And we've seen that happen. If you just put someone in VR, right, they're just in their own world. But bringing people into a new world together, right, allows those magic of like awe and wonder and joy and like laughter, right, those little micro moments of connection that happen. That's how you build a conversation. That's how you build a relationship. So it's really important for us that it's experienced together. You probably saw in the videos that Davis shared, like it's one thing to see one person experiencing it, but when you have three people right next to each other, all like smiling and turning at the same time and looking at the same thing, it's fascinating.
Had a question for Davis. So given your experience with Front Porch and the number of people who you interact with who've used not just VR but even other technologies, do you have any insight as to what the people want, right, when you're working with older adults and they experience these technologies? Do you find any patterns of them saying, I wish that I could do X or Y? And what are those things that are still sort of to be created that your population is really excited about?
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is as varied as the entire population of the human species, which is that older adults have the same needs, wants, and desires as everyone else, and like I would love to go to the Louvre in Paris. I've never been there. I'd love to try skydiving sometime. I mean, I think it really is varied. But one of the great things about VR and its opportunity is that the world is their oyster, right? I mean, there's just so much that people can tap into. Like, sometimes people are like really, really super specific. Like, can you go to can you take me to 1234 Main Street in Pasadena, California? Like, okay, right? And it's I mean, like these are it really, I mean, something turns every one of us on in one way or another, right? And the trick is trying to find what that thing is. Like, what is that meaningful connection? That all said, what we what we see that kind of tends to resonate, obviously, are like travel tour videos or experiences, like visiting old towns and neighborhoods, like going underwater, and puppies and kittens. It's like what you see on TikTok, right?
Yeah, no different than the internet, right?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that we just need to be a little careful about like kind of cubby holing the needs and wants of older adults. There are some specific experiences, I think that we can speak on a general level that do resonate, which is like, how does this connect with my memories of the past? How does it connect with my family members or my loved ones? And how does this connect with something that gives me meaning and purpose?
Have another question, Tiffany?
Yeah, I was just curious, Davis, you mentioned earlier that the key to success is really having a good facilitator. And I'm wondering if, or maybe that's not just the only key, but I'm wondering if the dream is to have an older adult be able to interact with virtual reality independently in the future, or are we still counting on physical therapists, rehabilitation specialists, counselors, therapists, whatever, to facilitate an experience for them so that they get positive benefits?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of VR, whether it's Rendever, Embodied Labs, or whatever, they do require like the tech just really isn't built for older adults. Like they're not designed for older fingers and older hands. And what we also find is that people like the headsets, and they're getting better, but the headsets are just too heavy. Like people complained about neck stress. But the controlling of the devices haven't got to a universal design point where anybody can just pick one up and put it on. And so it does still require someone to kind of provide some hand holding and some facilitation. And but I don't think that we're too far away. I mean, like just 5 years ago, like like we have just like we've expanded this product and by leaps and bounds in so many amazing ways, and they're getting lighter and smaller, and processing speeds are getting much they're increasing as well. I think it will catch up, but right now at this point in time, I don't see it. I don't see someone just kind of picking it up like a pair of glasses and getting to work on it.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that. I also want to say that there's a lot of opportunity in focusing on the caregiver delivery dynamic, right? Because ultimately, whether or not you're talking about a family caregiver, you're talking about a senior living community staff member, what you're doing is you're putting in their hands an opportunity to these people that they care for day in and day out, right? Whether it's medical needs, dietary needs, physical fitness needs, like whatever needs that they're fulfilling, one of those needs is social engagement. And what you're doing is you're putting in their hands a really powerful platform and a powerful opportunity to say, what in the world, where in the world do you want to go? What in the world do you want to experience? Like, what is something that matters to you? And they respond and they're like, great, I'm going to give that to you. All right. By putting that sense of empowerment in the community staff members' hands or in the family caregiver hands, you're giving them a really positive opportunity for interaction, which when you fall into, especially like an unpaid family caregiver dynamic, can be really hard to grasp. So there is, it's a great question, and it's a great, like, it's a line of thinking that we always have. There's actually something that we're working on, but we will never not focus on our end user being the older adult, being the person in the headset, and our end user being the person who's delivering the experience. Whether or not that's us through Rendezvous Live or one of our experience experts through Rendezvous Live, or the staff member, because it matters, right? Those relationships are part of the relationships that will decrease social isolation if you can make them positive and empowering.
I know you need to wrap this up, Dr. Finley, but I just want to kind of throw in the chat box. I put an impact story on our website that also has links to a pretty extensive white paper that we did on virtual reality, and it's a resource that anyone can access. It's just a slightly outdated, but it's pretty comprehensive, we feel, in being able to address VR.
Okay, and you said that's an okay, now I see it. Great. So hopefully everyone else can see that. Okay, yeah, so we are right at the end of our time. So of course, I'd like to thank our guests, Davis and Kyle. This was really great. I know I learned a lot about what both of you do, so this is really exciting. It's also nice to get some just motivation to really try to tackle some of these harder questions related to things like usability and understanding how social interaction can be leveraged in the context of VR. I'd like to thank everybody who is attending. I know some of you are attending from all across at least the country, so that's really great to see. And stay tuned for future events, either through our Twitter, through Slack, or other forms of notification, our website, and so on. So yeah, with that, we'll wrap up for today and hopefully see you all at the next event. All right, take care.